And they not only have everything, but they have lots of information. You know, they have comparisons, different kinds of inks, but based on color.
Call our meeting to order. It's Tuesday, July 24th, 7:30. Isabel, would you please do the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Bear,
Present.
Commissioner Grossman,
Present?
Commissioner Marks, Chair Deal.
Here. Okay. So our first item is approval of the action minutes from June 7th. Does anybody have any comments? Corrections? Okay. Would somebody like to move to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so next on the agenda is public comment. This is for persons desiring to address the commission on an item that is not on the agenda. So does anybody from the public wish to? Okay. Are there any announcements from the committee members?
I have an announcement. I'm a little bit sick right now, so forgive my voice. But this is my last meeting with the commission. It's been so great to serve here. I've learned so much from all of you, and I've been so inspired by your dedication to creating a place where vibrant civil discourse can thrive and real change can be realized. And I will take these experiences with me as I move on to begin college and the next step of my life. So thank you all.
Thank you. We will miss you. Your presence has
Come back.
been very important here.
Definitely, just, you know, we're all
Young people, you give us hope.
right,
It's the main
I'm
thing.
really impressed with your generation.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm just amazed
Yeah.
how you can dig in there and you have the sophistication and intelligence.
Thank you.
We're looking to you to do good things.
I'll do my best.
Stay in touch.
Yeah. I'll come back.
Okay, does anybody else have an announcement for the committee?
I wanted to talk a little bit about the new Stair Center in Berkeley. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to just talk briefly about the new Stair Center that opened at 2nd and Cedar. It's a homeless shelter, brand new. It can hold about 45 people. I want to say the positive. There's one negative that I have about it. I volunteered there a couple times. You can go. They need volunteers, but you need to sign up ahead of time because they need, to do a check and everything. But so it's great because there's no curfews, which people like, and they can have their pets, which they can have the pet in with them, in their bed and everything. And people really like that, and they love that there's no curfew. And the one negative I have, they have 3 washers and 3 dryers. And I couldn't see a brand name on any of them. And this was after the first week, 2 of the washers were broken down. It was like, oh, God. But I know they were getting a lot of use. And when I went there and saw people were smiling, and you could tell they were happy to be there. And with a sense of relief, I'm sure, as I'm hearing from Leah, that's really hard to be on the streets and, not know where your next meal's coming from or if you're going to be safe or anything. So there is a sense, you can look at these people and they feel like relief. And so I'd say that's to me, that's one negative thing that they can fix easily. But I was impressed with it so far, and the people are happy to be there, the ones that I've talked to.
How long, Margie, do you know how long they can stay?
I believe they can stay 6 months.
And then at the end of that?
They're supposed to be going through different things to help them prepare to get housing now. And I know that, Isabel sent that report out again that talked about the steps that someone would go through. So, there is a large staff that I was impressed with that was helping people. So after they get everyone checked in, which was I was there the second week, and they only had, I think, 1 more space. Wow. So it's filling up quickly. Oh, it's filled. But so they were doing all this intake to get people placed into the shelter first. And so they're moving forward then with the people that are there to work with them. But it's as good as the staff, and there's a guy named Christian running it who seems really good, but.
Well, it's as good as also, on the other end, it's as good as there is in terms of housing.
Yeah. But it's like to see these folks that got into the shelter and the look, I've seen them on the streets, and now to see them in the shelter, it's a good environment for most of them, I believe.
It's great.
Humanizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And we got Mama Bear in there. She was at the Bulb, one of the people at the Bulb, and they called her Mama Bear because she took care of all the teenagers that were down at the Bulb. And she's in a wheelchair. And I have to give it to Elsbeth Beller and Jim Beller. They really pushed and got her. She was the first person in there. She got in there. She didn't even have sheets on her bed, but the guy, Christian, let her in, and she's doing great, and she's getting ready to have knee surgery. So that's, anyway, I think it's going to, there's negatives, but I think it's going to be really positive in the long run with everything.
Mark, did you have anything you wanted to know?
No.
Okay, well, I have a whole collection of things. I actually went to the opening and I was really impressed, and I asked around if somebody from the city could come and talk to us about it. And somebody else, one of our former mayors had suggested that we get eagle or tree grub. So that's something we can bring up later when we talk about our agenda. So I had some other announcements. First of all, the 26th, Thursday, is the deadline for the families to be reunited, the ones who were separated at the border recently. And part of the way that is being marked is with a rally that will take place at El Cerrito Plaza Thursday, July 26th, from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. It's something that El Cerrito Progressives have organized. So that's 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. at El Cerrito Plaza, Thursday, this Thursday, the 26th.
And it's at the corner where Pete's and Daiso and Chipotle, it's that corner there.
Right.
And it's every Thursday, actually.
Yeah. And then some other things, actually, the issue of homelessness and affordable housing is getting a lot of political traction. I got a notification from California Senator Nancy Skinner, and there's going to be a vote on the November ballot. We're going to be voting on a $4 billion housing bond to create affordable housing for veterans, families, and others. There's a lot of other activities that have already taken place. There's $500 million now available in our 2018-2019 budget for emergency funding for local efforts to address homelessness. And then Senator Kamala Harris, has introduced legislation. It's called the Rent Relief Act, and it would create a refundable tax credit that would be available to individuals who live in rental housing and pay more than 30% of their gross income for the taxable year, including their utilities. And also, it will be available for individuals who live in government-subsidized rental housing, and they could claim the value of 1 month's rent as a refundable tax credit. And subsidized rent is normally capped at 30%, and that 30% is the percentage that we had discussed all the time when we were working on rent review. That's kind of like the cutoff where you decide you're paying too much.
It's a federal limit. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So, let's see. Okay,
And you said, is it veterans, families and others, or is it veterans, families and others?
veterans, families,
Okay.
and others, yeah, right. It's not just veterans. Okay. So are there any is there announcements from the staff?
No.
Okay. So our unfinished business takes us to, on the top of our agenda, inclusivity. And unfortunately, I guess Art was not here when we made various different comments to the letter, but, oh, you were here. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I misunderstood. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I
do we
can-
have an update on that?
Yes, so there was a little, I was here, there was just a little confusion because I assumed since we had passed it that Isabel would pass it on to council, but Isabel did not make that assumption.
Okay.
And so several weeks went by and nothing happened, and
Yeah.
then we talked and I discovered nothing had happened.
Oh,
So
okay.
this week I did make the corrections and submit it, and I've had responses from a number of council people.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Barnes basically says he's not sure what he thinks about this yet, but he's going to talk to the mayor and think more about it. He's concerned, he's not sure that it's the same population that they would be surveying as the population we're interested in. Peggy indicated, Mayor Peggy indicated that she will refer this to staff for consideration. And Nick Pilch says he fully supports this, and he thinks with a combination of staff and volunteer power that it can be accomplished with current staff. We talked briefly to Rochelle outside. She was saying that she didn't think that, in fact, there would be a survey that would use a different methodology to determine this issue about whether there are populations that have difficulty getting elected. So we may have to propose this survey as a separate item.
Did she say anything about what would potentially be doing instead of a survey,
Yeah,
or?
it's a kind of a demographic study where they
Okay.
go back and look at previous voting patterns and, yeah, so it doesn't involve a prospective study, it's backwards,
Right.
looking backwards, so. I'm not sure quite what happens next. I guess we have these inputs. If we can determine, in fact, that they're not going to do a survey, then I think the question would be, do we want to propose that a survey be done? Which would be a matter, I think, of writing another letter and saying, contact you and, we understand you're not doing a survey. We think that would be useful. It seems like there would be support for it. It may just be a question of recognizing that it's a separate matter.
And so then they would call for the staff to create a survey? Is that what you're thinking?
There are a variety of ways that could happen. They may ask the staff for a direction in terms of, whether it could be done internally or whether they would hire a consultant to do it.
So sounds like you got various different responses, but nothing real conclusive yet.
Right, well, people haven't had much time to think about it, so.
So how do we want to follow up for the time being?
If the mayor has referred it to staff, will staff respond in some way as well?
Yeah, this is very recent news. You have more news than I do. So I think you need to give us a little bit of time to
Yeah.
see what the council response is, and I can get back to you in September.
Okay.
So is there anything else on that one?
I don't think so, not for the moment.
Just wait.
Tara, did you have anything?
No, I was gonna say, I think it's best to probably just wait until things are a little bit more concrete before proposing something.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next item is Berkeley Food and Housing Project. And Margie and I happened to be at the meeting where they were talking about the mid-year review. And I thought it would be interesting for us to have a chance to look at that and see if we want to create a joint response or we just want to talk about it. We have some feedback that we'd like to provide the council on this report. Did everybody get a chance to go over it? What was your sense of the report? Margie?
Me on the spot. I guess it's unclear to me that everything is happening that's in the report. I mean, one thing, for example, I've been at the showers, and I've seen Robbie there one time. It was like over 2 years ago, and never seen her give a ride. Maybe she's giving a ride to people to the Berkeley showers, but not to the Albany showers. So that's, and I know that people in the field are not that pleased with the individual. So, and, I've heard many complaints about that person. So,
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Isabel, has there ever been any attempt to gain feedback from
That's exactly-
consumers?
That's what I was gonna say.
From consumers, well, I think the most feedback we've gotten is when the community resource center was open, and then Allison would hear some of the feedback from the consumers. So that's the most we've done.
Yeah, it might be useful, especially, if the council's about to recontract.
No, the contract was a 2-year contract, so this was a midterm update.
Well, at some
And-
point then, subsequent to recontracting, I think it would be appropriate to identify at least a subset of people who've used the service, and get some feedback from them as to how it's worked for them.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. In fact, I would like to see something like that in the reports that we get on a quarterly basis. First, one thing that I noted when I looked at this is that The background paragraph said that, something like, using housing first and harm reduction principles in combination with intensive and responsive housing navigation services, BFHP has been able to house and retain housing for people who had been chronically homeless. One of the greatest reasons for this success is that case management housing has been tailored to each client's unique needs. It sounds really wonderful, but then when you look at the numbers back here, I mean, there's one column where there's absolutely no success whatsoever registered. It's all zeros. And and I think this is something we noted the last time, like there's a lot of like initial interaction, but not very much results. The results aren't that good. And I was at that meeting, we did hear various people, I think a lot of them were members of DOG who had gotten up and questioned quality of the service that the people were getting. So, yeah, I agree totally with Bart that at least once a year, if not quarterly, we get a tally of responses from the people who are being served.
I think quarterly is too much to expect.
Yeah,
But I do think,
like semi.
at least once a year, they could identify some people. Probably, not everyone's going to return a survey, but it's kind of normal in a social services program to have some kind of consumer survey at the end of service.
Okay.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be extraordinary to do that. I imagine they do that for other programs.
Yeah.
Another thing I thought might be helpful is to look at other regions in the state and compare, what kinds of successes they're getting in comparison to the Bay Area. I don't think we're totally unique.
Well, we are the worst housing market in the country. So you can't hold them entirely responsible for the outcome, since, you can't house somebody if there's no housing. But that's why I think we need input from consumers as to how hard they tried, for example.
Yeah. And
But they do succeed in housing some people in this market, which is remarkable in and
Yeah.
of itself.
true, it's hard enough if you can afford it.
Yeah.
So, and then another question I had is about what are the qualifications of the housing navigator that's supposed to be hired? What are we looking for? I didn't see anything in the report that listed like,
Robbie's the housing navigator.
okay, so what kind of qualifications does she have? But aren't they also going to hire somebody?
A neighborhood person. Something
Right,
else.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's not BFHP, that's the city. The city will be hiring a neighborhood services manager, but the BFHP contract, the housing navigator position, is part of the Berkeley Food and Housing Project contract, so it's a contractor.
Okay, so what's the title of Albany's hire?
Neighborhood services manager.
And when is that supposed to happen?
Well, that's not part of the BFHP contract. That's a completely different item, which is not on the agenda right now.
Okay, well, I guess I am a little confused because, like staffing on page 3 of this report, the housing navigator will sustain a visible presence in the city of Albany and will act as part of the larger team being created by the Human Services Linkages Program.
So as part of the update, what I've included in the contract with BFHP is to have these regular meetings between BFHP and the Human Services Division staff, which includes me and the eventual Neighborhood Services Manager and the volunteers of the Resource Center. And because now we're starting to, and I've said this before, we're starting to have a group of people who are dedicated to human services in Albany. So I want to include the contractor, the housing navigator, as part of those coordination meetings, so we can talk about who is being served, what are the needs, and have continuous communication between everyone.
Okay, so you didn't actually refer to the neighborhood services manager in this report, or did you?
No, because this is from.
No, this is the Berkeley Food
Okay.
and Housing Project, but I'm just giving you a little bit of information as to the intent of the update
Yeah.
of the Berkeley Food and Housing Project contract.
Okay, and so we don't really have input into the qualifications for the navigator?
No, we leave that up to the contractor, the Berkeley Food and Housing Project. They hire all the time for this type of position. For us, for the county, for the city of Emeryville, everybody in the city of Berkeley.
When are we supposed to hire our neighborhood services manager?
It's in progress at this time.
Progress, okay. Well, so you don't have a date?
No, it takes a little bit of time.
Yeah. Well, I would like us to have some input on who gets hired, or at least the qualifications of that person.
Well, this is a city position, so typically boards and commissions don't have, we've already, it's a different process, and it's outside of the board's, any board's jurisdiction or, yeah.
Well, I kind of feel like, what is the use of us being involved in any of this if we don't have some kind of, route to influence it?
Well, your report is to the city council.
Yeah, okay. So I think I would like to move that we prepare a report to the city council about our concerns regarding the Berkeley Food and Housing Project. Anybody like to second that?
Wait, could you repeat it? I'm sorry.
I think it would be really useful for us to prepare a report regarding this Berkeley Food and Housing Project midterm contract update.
Okay, you want to deal with the update? What, I'm just trying
somehow
to
I
make.
want us to
What do
have-
you want to get? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I want us to be able to influence the quality of the services.
Well, because they just approved the contract at the meeting that we were at. So I think we're working in the future, and we probably have a little time to get more client input. Do you know what I mean? Rather than doing it like right now after they just approved it.
Useless.
Yeah, I think we should like put in a little more thought and a little more work into it. I don't, like,
Okay, so what would be the timing? What would be
Well, the contract is up for renewal in another year.
in another year? Okay, so how soon in advance, before the city council signs off on it?
They usually sign off in June.
In June?
they-
So it would be on their agenda in May?
No, usually in June, the first or second meeting in June.
That would be our only opportunity?
It's part of the budget approval.
Right.
Yeah.
That, and then also the contract itself goes to council.
Okay.
I mean, I certainly think we can give input before that, before the
Yeah, I do
contract.
too.
It was 2 meetings ago that I brought you the BFHP contract as it was and asked for the commission's input. And I got some input. It got included in the update.
Okay,
So it's not like the commission did not have a chance to provide input on the update that was presented to council. Yeah.
Thanks.
So if you want to provide more input for next year, then the commission should decide on a plan of action to achieve that goal. But the commission always has a chance to provide input on the contract before it goes to council.
I just want to get back to this question of consumer input. Can you discuss that with them? See whether there's,
Yes, of course.
see if there's, they may even have an evaluation.
Exactly. They may already be doing it for other jurisdictions or contracts. So yes, I'm happy to.
Okay. So we can go to the public. You're the public. Could you please come up to
Because
the,
it gets taped and televised, so that's why we need you to be at the microphone. Your input is valuable.
Right. I'm a consumer of Berkeley Food and Housing. Robbie Montoya is one of the worst people you could possibly have to deal with the public. She deceived me. She led me down paths. She presented a program that really didn't exist. They said I was number one on their list to be housed. I presented myself last September. Okay, what are we in July now? Nothing has happened with this outfit. They refused to acknowledge my disabilities or my needs with respect to housing as how it related to my disabilities. The whole program is bogus. I was skimming this report here. It's really hyped. It makes it look a lot better than it is. Whoever's paying $150,000 a year to support this Berkeley Food and Housing, I wish they'd take their money and give it right here in Albany, and we could figure out our own way of sorting out how to house people. I'm disabled. I'm 62. I've been homeless for 3 years. That's 1,100 nights sleeping in a Safeway lot with very little sleep, very little privacy, very little peace of mind. Being homeless is one of the most devastating things that can happen to anybody. What I would like to see here is if there's any way at the end of this period, next June when this comes up, that somehow this body here could meet with consumers and we could create our own report of our own treatment in this program. The program sucks, and we're better off without a social worker if all they're going to do is lead us down paths. Robbie is insincere. She is full of, yeah, I'll do this, but she doesn't have any backup, or she won't back it up. She won't act. She hasn't been to the resource center and at the senior center for months. No one's seen her. What are they doing with $150,000 a year if she is not at least showing up once in a while? I'm outraged. I'm devastated and outraged. I am sick, physically sick and emotionally distraught. Being homeless is just horrible, and this outfit promised me the moon last fall. I was number one on the list. I was going to be housed immediately, and I got moldy old dead cheese. So I would support that this body or somebody find who the consumers are and get reports from us, not filtered through some social worker or someone else, but our own words that not like edited out and stuck in a report on a back page somewhere. So I would support that definitely, and we need to get on this sooner than later before June rolls around, and then it's like, oh, scatter and rush to get it done. Finding the consumers is a challenge. I know couple of them already who have not gotten any help either. How dare they dangle this in front of very vulnerable populations and give us nothing? They say, hope, oh yes, we got hope for you, and then it's nothing. And then I was excited to see the Navigation Center open. I went down there. You cannot get housed without becoming a resident. That's a huge problem. I'm not going to sleep in a room with a bunch of strangers. I have my cat. I have my disabilities. I'm not going to do it. So the structure of the Navigation Center, fine and dandy, but it isn't working for certain populations. So there's a lot of problems. All these do-gooding outfits, they collect their paychecks, they aggrandize themselves, they justify their masters in social work. The people are benefiting from those programs are the people that are getting paid to implement them.
Okay, thank you.
The money should go to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody have a response? I think he summed it up. And that sounds like we plan to do. And probably we should get on board by April
Yeah.
next year.
Oh, before then,
Before, okay, anybody, when do you think, February? January? February,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, I would just say that we talk so much about the importance of humanizing everybody, and so it's clear now that this needs to be much more of a reciprocal conversation.
Okay, so should we move on to the next item?
I would just say, in passing, that if you are aware of other people who are unhappy, or even if they're happy, if you could encourage them to correspond with us, just to write a letter or send an email or anything, so that we can have that information. Because at this point, we have no sources except what comes in the reports. But what you're saying is very upsetting, and I think we need to do something about it.
I agree. Okay, so our next item is the soda tax update. Margie?
Okay, so what the city did was,
I wondered before we roll on here,
Yeah.
whether we might begin to think a little bit about a strategy. If we begin to collect some information, such as we have tonight, which exists on video, could we not at least ask Berkeley Food and give Berkeley Food and Housing Project that information and ask for a response? Obviously anonymously.
Yeah, we can discuss at a public meeting private matters.
Personnel.
Personal matters.
I'm not talking about doing it publicly.
Yeah.
I'm talking about you're telling them that we have this information and asking for some response from them.
Yeah, and you're talking about client concerns, or are you talking specifically of their situation? Or are you talking about clients' concerns about Robbie?
Well, that's part of it, but I think that, the question is, if we're getting feedback about the program, the feedback about the program needs to go to the program.
oh, okay, can I
We
just,
need to hear from the program what their response is. We had a conversation about that at the last meeting, because we had gotten some negative letters. And I think, Isabel, you were going to pursue that with them to see what had happened.
What letters?
Letters concerning Mama Bear. Remember, there was an incident with Mama
Oh, yeah,
Bear
well, yeah, again, we're talking about
I know.
private clients, so, and it's not really part of that item, so I would really refrain from talking about specific consumers of the...
I want to talk about
Yes, but we did follow up, and I think, I was able to provide some information to Margie. Yes, so I'm going to...
I just, as the SCJC, I feel very uncomfortable talking about a personnel matter and
Yeah.
saying the person's name, and I think that's not fair to her.
Right.
And really, it's not, and I think we're shirking our responsibilities as a commission to not say that if someone's getting paid by anybody, an employee's getting paid and they're not doing their job, then we need to do whatever, document it, do whatever, but I don't think we should talk about it publicly here.
I'm
Like,
not suggesting, I just want to make sure that if we get some information, that there's a path to get some response.
yes, so maybe, somehow it has to be offline, though, we can't talk about it.
No. I think you're in the right direction as far as if you want to continue to, you want to get some consumer input in the future to inform your discussion or your feedback to council. I think that's, within the purview of this
So,
commission.
yeah, if
But
people wanna
talking
come-
about people's cases
No,
at the commission level is completely inappropriate.
Right, so if any of you wanted to come to the shower program on Fridays, many of the people there have had contacts with Berkeley Food and Housing and can give information, so, but I think we need it to be, current, verified, and, if we really want action to happen, then we need to do a good job of it, we can't just be.
So we were saying we're going to start some kind of action, start taking some kind of action in February as far as documenting.
I don't know that we have to wait till then, even.
We
Okay,
can
so-
be collecting some information.
I would say with that, though, that, oh, okay.
Okay, so I don't think we can include you, sorry, but, yeah, because this is not a meeting where the public is involved in the commission's discussion. We're just now working out what we need to do.
I was just going to say that with whatever kind of feedback that we're getting, I think it's important to have like completely open-ended feedback, like just asking for comments, but also maybe some sort of something that can get us like a hard number percentage, like maybe like a sliding scale for different things from like strongly disagree to strongly agree, or some other sort of like clear metric, as well as having open commentary.
Okay?
Yeah.
So maybe that's the first thing we do, is create some type of a questionnaire.
Right.
and-
I think Isabel's talking with Berkeley Food and Housing Project about that, and I think maybe if a form gets developed, maybe we could see what the form is.
Right, and they may already have it. So
Okay.
I think, again, give me a little bit of time to inquire.
I also hope
BFHB.
that by then we'll have our social worker hired. We'll have the resource center up and going.
Right.
And I think, that's another way of getting feedback about how Berkeley Food and Housing is doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have very selective input at this point. We have to be fair.
Yes.
And, it has to be done in an open way. I do want to thank you, though, for providing that information to us and kind of lighting a fire under us. Mhm. Yeah.
I agree, to do it right.
Okay, so we can't have a conversation, I'm sorry, but you're out of order now, please. Thank you, thank you. Okay. So it sounds to me like there's a motion to have access to the form. I don't know if we really need a motion for that. Okay, so as soon as it's available, you will,
Well, if it's available, I'll find out.
okay, okay, great. So we can put that on the agenda for our next meeting. Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. So is the commission done discussing this?
Yeah.
Okay. So our next item then is the soda tax.
Okay, so what the city did, they got more money than anticipated, $100,000 more, really. And what the city did was all of the issues that were talked about, the classes, the drinking water stations, all are approved, in addition to $100,000 and some going to the crossing guards. So when this got approved by the city council, I said, look at, you promised this procedure. So the procedure's still in place that they will have this every year. They're supposed to have some kind of forum to get input from the public about how they want to spend the money. But, the whole amount of it could be taken up with crossing guards if that's whatever, and there are people who want that. So I think there's going to be an issue the next time this money comes around. Also, we're very lucky that we passed it when we did, because I don't know if people saw, but in the state legislature, they just passed a law that there will be no new soda taxes until the year 2031. And it passed almost unanimously. Luckily, those bodies that had already put it in place, they're going to leave it in place. So we got in just in the nick of time. What happened was the beverage industry they spent $7 million and got enough signatures to put a measure on the ballot that would make any tax increase have to go through 2/3 of whatever body votes. Now it's most things need a 2/3, but this would have really changed the format. So rather than putting that bitter pill, the legislatures agreed to this. Now, I read in today's, was it the Wall Street Journal? But one of them that the Dental Association and the Medical Association in 2 years are prepared to put a statewide soda tax measure on the ballot, written in such a way to supersede what the beverage industry has done. So it'll be unclear if it's going to still be our money to spend then, but we got in, I think we did a good job, and we got it in just in the nick of time. So I'm proud of our commission for pushing that forward, even when we got a little kind of disparaging comments about it in the beginning, but.
I have a question. So you mentioned that the extra unanticipated money was approved for the crossing guards. So I remember we talked a little bit last time about how ideally the revenue stream from the soda tax will go down over time. So was there any discussion of what's going to happen to that money for the crossing guards in that event?
I mean, we brought it up, that obviously it's probably going to be going up, money for crossing guards, and soda tax will be
Right.
going down, so it's not an ideal match that way. But, so there will be the procedure next time, and we'll see what.
So just kind of deal with it when it comes.
Right.
Okay.
It's a bigger issue, isn't it? I mean, the question is who should be paying for the crossing guards?
That is a question. I mean, and not for us to answer, but I mean, maybe ultimately it is, I don't know, but.
No, I don't think it is, but I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like the city stepped in kind of on an emergency basis.
Right, whether the school board should pay for it, whether the city should pay for it, that is a bigger question, and whether the public wants to spend the soda tax money on that. But there will be a format to go through. I mean, one of the things I told the council was when I was out campaigning, all the public would say, well, what's to stop the city council from using it as a slush fund to spend it on whatever they want?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Basically. So anyway, but we got in just in the nick of time.
But that's encouraging that, you said the Dental and Medical Association.
In 2 years, they're going to put a statewide, yep.
They should have a lot of clout, I would think, in that area.
Well, you would think it would have passed everywhere, like I don't, but they spent a lot of money. They
Yeah.
spent over $100,000 in Albany.
Yeah.
So is there anything we need to do now regarding this item?
Well, it'll be coming up again next year.
Right, okay.
So, so there will be a format every year, and we're one of the bodies that is to give input. So
Okay.
especially if you have any ideas, Tara, for the upcoming money, we would love your input since you won't be here.
I wonder, do they have like a plan in place to, get all of the information about like all of the different things that they're putting in place and the programs and like how it's all working? Like, will there be updates or reports on like how that's going, or?
Yeah, feedback and
Yeah.
how the status update and on how it's going. I don't know that, but I think that will be an important piece of it to see.
Right, especially since it's such a mix of some of the expenses are like a one-time cost, like buying a water bottle filling station, but then some of
Right.
them are ongoing, like a class. or
Right,
something.
but then you have the upkeep, right,
Right.
and that, I don't know if that's included in the, so we need to look at that.
Right, yeah.
We don't want to put these beautiful things in place and then,
Especially if the
Deteriorate.
revenue stream goes down, yeah.
yeah.
So,
so is there anything else on this item? Okay, so our next item is aging in place. And we were going to talk about the next steps. And I guess part of what we need to do is, what does that mean to age in place? What does it take to age in place? And do we have an issue here in Albany?
Damn straight we do, honey, and I'm sitting right here.
Me too. It seems to me that, I mean, we generally, when this comes up, we look to the senior center.
Yeah.
This is not necessarily a senior center issue. It involves a variety of things. I just sort of anecdotally, in terms of my conversations with people, some people are sitting in large houses. They would like to divest themselves and move into something smaller. There is nothing smaller. There's nothing available. There's no senior housing beyond Belmont Village. Belmont Village is prohibitively expensive. And I think many people are angry about that the city made no
Yeah.
effort really to add.
Have
it's
any
just not
affordable housing,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So that's one issue. I think the other issues, some of them are dealt with through the senior center. For example, as people age, needing help with home repairs, transportation, things of that sort. There are programs at the senior center for some of that. I don't know how widespread the demand is and whether the supply is adequate. Because there are, I think, at least my impression is that there are seniors in the city who are kind of isolated and don't necessarily come to the senior center. So we don't know what their needs might be. So I think we're in a similar position than we were with inclusivity, which is that we need to know more about what actually the need is and how big it is, and we need to hear from the people who are in that situation.
Do we know the percentage of the population that consider themselves to be aging in place with or without the help of the senior center?
Well, in the housing plan, it lists all of those demographics,
Right.
like how old people are and if they're living in a, single-family home, and so we can get that. I'm really interested in this subject, and I'm hoping that rent review is over forever, that we never hear of it again, ever, ever, ever. And I'd really like to
Well, we're
work on
going
this.
to hear about it again because of Costa
I
Hawkins.
know,
but,
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, but I don't want to be a pig and take over some subject that somebody else is really dying to do. So
It's generous. of you.
slap me down, guys.
No, well, it doesn't have to be just you. I mean.
Right, no, it would be like
Yeah.
I'm seeing, I think we need a subcommittee to start.
Yeah.
And I've been very involved. I joined the Friends of Albany Seniors. I've been volunteering there once a week and doing other volunteer stuff. And so I have some feel for what the city, the services that the city's providing.
Yeah, we got a pretty good report from Sid Schoenfield
Right.
regarding the senior center. Now, I'm curious to what his background is. Is he like a social worker or?
No, he's been working in the recreation field for many years. He worked in San Leandro before, worked for seniors, child care programs, a wide array of services and recreation.
Okay. So he's not a social worker?
Well, he hasn't been trained as a social worker.
Okay. How long has he been there at the senior center?
I think 3 years, 3 or 4 years.
He could have some good ideas about how.
Yeah, it'd probably be worth talking to him
Yeah.
more, I think, maybe in a more intimate setting and not where he's not reporting, but where we have a conversation.
Right, yeah. So, I'd be very interested in meeting with him. Kind of get an idea of where he is on that.
I mean, we need a launching off point, so.
Anybody else? Bart?
I'd be willing.
Yeah, you guys, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, but that's not a subcommittee, it's
Right,
just,
well,
yeah.
no, I don't,
Yeah.
believe me, I think the subject is big enough for everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's just the Brown Act that gets
Right.
in the way
Yeah.
in terms of the number of people who can.
Well,
Yeah,
we don't, I'm not on
subcommittee.
the rent review committee anymore. I mean, that's done deal, right?
Hopefully done forever.
So, we need a motion to set up a meeting, or we
I
just,
don't think
okay. So we could just talk
think- yeah.
later about, okay, meeting with,
Hey, Sid, we'd like to talk to you. I think we don't need a motion for that.
so we'll do that before September and then report back? Okay. So, next item, unless anybody has something else?
Oh, the other thing I was just going to suggest related to this is a colleague of mine by the name of Andrew Charlack, who's recently retired, was the head of the gerontology sequence at Berkeley for many years, and has done a lot of work on the issue of senior-friendly communities. It might be interesting to have him come and talk to us, or maybe even not just us, maybe a group of people at the senior center.
Right.
He's lots of ideas about things that cities can do to make it easier for older people.
What's his name, Bart?
Charlack, S-C-H-A-R-L,
L-I-C-K?
L-L-E-C-K.
L-L-E-C-K?
Let me
just
write
one?
it down so I
Here
can.
it is, just,
S-C-H-A-R-L-A-C-H, I believe.
Okay, all
I have
right.
to double check that.
okay. And what is
Well, I
his
just missed
title?
one.
I'm sorry.
He was professor at the School of Social
okay.
Welfare. And I guess he's professor emeritus at this point.
Okay.
Do you want to contact him and see?
Well, let's talk about what we would want to do.
Well, have him come in and talk to us about what makes up a senior-friendly community.
I think that we have to think about what the right moment is, because, you know, I don't want to, he's not going to be able to do this multiple times. I think it may be better when we have a clearer picture of what the needs are so that we
Yeah,
can
okay.
ask good questions.
Okay, so maybe that would follow up after we meet with Sid.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what about, in terms of the Friends of Albany Seniors, would it be useful maybe for us to have a meeting with them? With a subgroup of
I
them?
would, yeah, maybe like the executive board of the Friends of Albany Seniors. I think that would be great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I imagine they have a sense.
So first, meet with Sid, then the Albany Seniors,
Yeah, the Friends of Albany
Friends
Seniors.
of Albany Seniors. And then have Andrew come in?
And then let's see what we learn,
Okay. And then,
and we'll go
That
from
may
there.
lead to-
You know, that may lead
Okay,
to other
just-
people we should talk to, or?
Disclaimer, I'm on the executive board of the Friends of Albany
Yeah.
Seniors. Just so you know, I'm the secretary now.
Mhm.
oh, okay.
Nobody else wanted the job. So Isabel, so would it not, should I not be in that meeting with the two of them when they meet? Okay, it's okay,
Right,
I don't need
yes.
to, they'll get plenty of input from, more than I could give probably, so.
Unless it's at the FOAS board meeting, right, which
Okay.
is a public meeting, that would be fine. But if it's a meeting with the executive board, then
Yeah, okay.
All right, okay. Any other thoughts? No, okay. So move on to the next item. Okay, so the next item is the Satellite Affordable Housing Associates, and you just got a short report. And I tried to bring a little bit more information, but I think my computer is too old. I can't pull up the videos anymore, and I could not, I tried to print out the other comments that people made regarding this report, but anyway, this is just kind of This will just be short. I don't need to go into a lot of detail. Unless Isabel has more that she'd like to offer. But yeah, let's see, Ann Hirsch wrote this report regarding Satellite Affordable Housing Associates.
To whom? What was the context of this report? Was it,
This is going to tell you.
okay.
Okay. So this report provides background information regarding Satellite Affordable Housing Associates. And Satellite Housing was founded in 1966 to provide affordable, service-enriched housing for people with limited options. And it merged with Affordable Housing Associates in July 2012. So now it's called Satellite Affordable Housing Associates, SAHA. And it provides more than 4,000 residents in 7 counties in Northern California with affordable housing and ongoing support services. So Albany is currently working with SAHA on what they call an exclusive negotiating agreement, specifying a period of time in which the parties negotiate in good faith, creating mutually agreed upon terms for a development project. And the development project, the location right now that they're talking about is at Cleveland and Washington Avenue. You know, everybody knows where that is.
The bottom of Pierce Street.
Right, right. And yeah, there's a map too on the back of the report. The agreement serves as the basis for entering into a disposition and development agreement. That's a contract between the developer and the city that involves the sale of government-owned land. Okay. And the property has been designated as a high-density residential area. You know, and there was a report, and like I said, I tried to pull it off on my computer, and my computer said no. I got this like red, blinking lights with a cross over it, and
At least it didn't say, I don't want to.
right. But I figured if you want to, you can go on there and you can get more detail. The main thing I was trying to find out is what's the next step and what the date of that next step is. And I was wondering if you had that information. Okay. So I hope to find that out soon. But then people, the developer gave a presentation, and then they took comments, and I brought up the concern that the location's proximity to the Union Pacific Railroad, and that is the path that the coal trains would use if the city of Oakland cannot prevent the developer from making that part of the Port of Oakland or the for transportation of coal overseas, assuming it would be to China. So there was some serious consideration of that. I don't know if people have been following the whole coal transport issue, but the city of Oakland and the Sierra Club sued the developer, and the city of Oakland had voted not to allow the developer to bring in the coal trains, but they lost, and I guess the developer countersued, and the city of Oakland and the Sierra Club lost, but I guess there will be appeals. There's a very good possibility that right behind Albany Hill, there will be open coal train cars being transported through our community. They have to be open cars because there's gaseous emissions from the coal that if they're trapped in an enclosed space will explode. So anyway, that's something to think about. But then I also thought maybe we're dealing with issue that we commonly are confronted with in communities of color where the property has less value because it's an industrial area, and so that's where they can afford. But there are also areas that, because of the industry, are exposed to more contamination. So I would hate to see Albany kind of, it would be an environmental justice, it could be an environmental justice issue. Anybody have any comments on that?
It's a lot of ifs.
Yeah, exactly.
and,
Yeah.
so
But that's
it's-
what you're supposed to be looking at.
Yeah, and I imagine if they go further with this, I mean, the developer will have to deal with that question too. It's not
Yeah.
something anybody can ignore.
Right.
And if it's going to be an area, which is environmentally dangerous, they can't build there.
That was the first thing I thought actually when I looked at the map was noise pollution from the intersection there of like the railroad and the highway, and just, I mean, obviously it's not anything, there's nothing that we can really do about it, but just something for the developer to consider how that will affect the population living there.
Well, I think they have to do an environmental impact.
Yeah,
They
right.
have to. It's by-
Yeah, and so, I don't know exactly what the law says about considering future potential pollution, but, I mean, it's an issue that's been discussed for years now.
Now, is this in relation to the county measure that where there's 2.2 million that Albany has access to? Is this?
Yeah, it's
Measure
part
A.
of that, yeah.
So this is what they're trying to do?
Yes.
I see.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I'm
so
sorry.
they've had some, because I know they've had a few private meetings,
With this
and
consultant.
this is finally, they're now making public
Right.
what they're doing.
No.
Okay. So this report was written for the council?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't quite understand where this
Oh,
came from.
okay, sorry, I didn't.
Yeah,
Yes, they gave a report at the meeting saying what
Okay.
they did, and
okay. All right, well, I mean, on the positive side, it's an appropriate developer, and we're talking about entirely affordable, right? So that's kind of an improvement over what might have happened. So it seems like they're headed in the right direction, and I hope that it becomes possible to do this.
And if you want to see the full presentation by the developers, you can go on the city website and look at the council meeting, the June 18th council meeting.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying, that I couldn't get into it.
Oh.
So unfortunately, I guess my computer's too old. Okay, does there anybody have any questions or comments? Anything else regarding this? No? Okay, so, yeah, we have, a lot of this stuff on the agenda is for our information. But there are things that we brought up previously, and kind of had questions about. There's a city council proclamation opposing the separation of migrant families. Did everybody get a chance to look at that?
Yeah.
Okay, so should I read it for whoever may be watching?
Are we able to give input on this, or is it already been?
It's already done deal.
Okay.
Yeah. It was on the consent calendar and nobody brought it down
Okay.
for discussion, but I don't,
Maybe if you read the last paragraph.
Sure, okay. So this is City of Albany proclamation opposing the separation of migrant families. The last paragraph is, now therefore be it proclaimed that the Albany City Council calls it on the administration, meaning the White House, and Congress to put an immediate end to the policy of separating families when they present themselves or are apprehended at the border, the Mexican border, and to reunite children with their families. We support the Keep Families Together Act, authored by Senator Feinstein and others, designed to keep immigrant families together by preventing the Department of Homeland Security from taking children from their parents at the border. This legislation was developed in consultation with child welfare experts to ensure the federal government is acting in the best interest of children. And then Peggy McQuaid's is a space for her signature. Anybody have any comments or questions about it?
Was this delivered or signed before, like while that was still the official administration policy, or?
Well, it was on the 18th,
Okay, yeah, then it would have been.
and the ACLU, I don't remember the exact date when they got the court decision.
Right,
But,
yeah,
it was
that
after.
would have been, okay.
The
Just
ACLU
wondering.
decision was after. Okay,
But
so,
the policy has been reversed, but simply by presidential action. So at this
Right.
point, that it could happen again at any moment.
Yeah.
right, yeah. Executive order.
Yeah, I mean, the courts have basically, stepped in, but it's not a settled thing, so it's
Right,
worth.
and there are still hundreds of kids who aren't
Yeah.
reunited yet,
Yeah,
so.
it's Thursday.
Thursday,
all
yeah.
2,500 of the kids are supposed to be reunited.
Keyword, supposed to be.
But apparently there's at least 900 that are considered unqualified to be reunited. And this is what I heard on the news, I'm quoting the news now. In part because their parents have already been deported and they're still here in the United States. And so that's interesting that makes them unqualified to be reunited.
If people are interested in supporting action around this, the National Center on Youth Law in Oakland
Yeah,
is representing these families in a lawsuit against the government.
saw that.
So and there's more information available on their website. Yeah. They're also, beyond these children who were separated from their families, there are many thousands of children who are in federal custody now, who arrived unaccompanied at the border and have been kept in confinement and detention
Yeah.
for quite a long time.
I have resolved that. So, yeah, I heard there's up to like maybe 4,000 kids altogether.
I've heard bigger and
including
higher
those.
numbers than that, but yeah.
And this recent incident probably has brought that to light, that there are those other children. Anybody else? Margie? Okay. So the last thing on the agenda is Maddie Act. And this came out of a simple question that I wanted to ask Tara, and now we have the answer, that she has turned in her resignation. And have you talked to Nick?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So that was what I wanted to know. But in the meantime, Isabel told me about the Maddie Act, which explains how somebody is replaced if they resign from a commission. But originally, the Maddie Act was a way to, what they said, declares, the legislature finds and declares that a vast and largely untapped reservoir of talent exists among the citizenry of the state of California, and that a lot of these people do not know that there are these opportunities for them to serve on boards, commissions, and committees. And so the idea of the Maddie Act was to increase awareness so they could tap into us.
Yeah.
Having to pay us anything.
Yeah, I believe the notice went out today, so should be good to go.
But then the last paragraph talks about if there's an unscheduled vacancy, meaning before the end of the year. And the notice has to be posted in the office of the clerk of the local agency. What is our clerk's name?
And Sue?
Ann Sue, okay. And it has to be done not earlier than 20 days before or not later than 20 days after the vacancy occurs. So the vacancy occurs, when does the vacancy officially occur? I mean, you've turned in your resignation.
Yeah, the Matty Act notice went out over email today.
Today.
Because that's when I got it.
Yeah.
So,
So
Okay.
it should be fine.
And it's posted at different locations in the city, here at City Hall, at the Senior Center and the Community Center, and on the city website.
Okay. So appointment shall not be made by us for at least 10 working days after the posting of the notice.
Yes, so the appointment can occur after August 7th, because it got posted today.
Okay. Well, actually, we are not the appointing body, though, but the city council.
Well, in this case would be Nick Pilch.
Pilch, yeah.
Okay. So I'm assuming he will be doing that before we have our next meeting in September.
it's up to him.
And we could you encourage him?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I talked with him about it like a few weeks ago, so he's been aware.
Okay. And there's nothing to prevent any of us from encouraging him either.
You can certainly encourage people to apply also,
Yeah.
Okay.
right? If you know anybody.
Okay. Good. So is there anything else that anybody wants to bring up about this Matty Act?
I guess we will, after the election, we will all need to be, we'll all be basically done.
Yeah, you have to, yes, reapply
Right.
at the end of the year.
We get a notice, I can't remember. We get a notice to reapply.
Yes, you'll get information.
Okay. Okay, so what do we want on the agenda for next time? September, aging in place?
Yeah.
Okay. Inclusivity?
Yeah, we'll see what's happened.
Okay. Anything else?
Maybe, Isabel, would you think you'd be able to report to us by then on the possibility of some kind of consumer input?
Yes, I have it down, yes.
Okay. Anything else on the agenda? Okay. Well, there could be other things too that we can add.
I'm not sure whether this is just a matter of information. I think you know that there will be a proposition on the ballot to rescind Costa Hawkins.
Oh, right.
And I don't know whether the city is going to take a position on that. It doesn't, yeah, okay.
I don't know if you were at the meeting when I brought it up, that it was there's going to be a proposition to repeal it.
Yeah,
Okay.
but, yeah, I don't know whether there's any appropriate action. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a significant resistance from the landlord groups to this,
I'm sure there will be too.
but it's going to be an uphill fight, I think.
Yeah. So are you suggesting we put that on the agenda?
Now that I think about it, I'm not sure what there is to say about it, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because we've already said pretty much what we
Mhm.
can say. We can't say whether we oppose it or support it as a group.
I'm not sure about that, but,
It's, we're not supposed to be, political advocates.
it's more, well, I don't know, I'll have to look into that. It's more complicated when it comes to propositions. It's-
Yeah. Well, okay, maybe that could be on the agenda then.
Because, I mean, the city puts forth propositions and
I know.
advocates.
Yeah,
It apparently can.
okay, so why don't we have that on the agenda then? Our role,
Well, just to remind the commission, though, that it's not on your work plan. So
Yeah.
the only items that you can actually work on are have to be on your work plan. So if you do decide to address that, then you need to submit a request to the council.
Yeah, I don't
For
know.
amending the work
I
plan.
have a broader view of what our role is, because I can see how these things can fit underneath what our duties are.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we can have conversations about things. It's just that if we get into significant work on something, we need to then have it be part of the work plan. But one of the ways we develop the work plan is by discussing issues and finding out what we need to work on.
Yeah, so maybe that's what you put on the agenda, actually, is discussion about potential items for the work plan.
I think that would be a good idea. When is the work plan?
Well, it's a little early now. September would be a little early, but usually it's at the beginning of the new year, so.
Okay, because
January or
I
February.
have been concerned for a while that most of the big items are done. And so our work plan is looking a little empty at the moment.
Yeah, we might want to amend it.
And we can always go to the council and say, you know, we've got space and time and,
Exactly, you can
Yeah.
amend it.
Yeah.
You can request to amend it.
yeah, so maybe it would be good to have a conversation about whether we want to do that and what the issues would be.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. I call the meeting to, I now adjourn the meeting.
Well, thank you, Tara. You were
Thank
such an
you.
inspiration.
Yeah.
We need a lot more young people like you to save us.